Do y'all want to see something super interesting? Here's a graph looking at some of the most dominant names in track and field at the moment. And in this chart, we get an idea at who really stands out as the greatest of them all. Now, on this chart, we have an x-axis that shows us the percent margin of victory that an athlete had over their peers at this year's World Championships. So just to get on this chart, you need to have won a global title. The more to the right you are, the more supremacy you've put on display during the biggest moment of the season, and the more left you are, the closer the competition was on the global stage. Now, on the y-axis, we have the overall ranking that the World Athletics puts to your name after a full season of competition. The higher you are here, the more total success you've had. On this graph, we have some of the greatest athletes of 2025. There's Noah Lyles in the 200 meters, who won the 200 final by a relatively small margin, and he's also one of the few athletes to score over 1,500 points in their overall World Athletics ranking. There's Oblique Seville in the men's 100, who won this year's world final in 9.77, but he only has a total score of 1,462 points. Other athletes with notable numbers here include Cordell Tench, here's Rai Benjamin in the 400 hurdles, here's Emmanuel Wanyanyi in the 800, and right here is Daniel Stahl in the men's discus, who only had an overall score of 1,419, but his win in the World Champs was one of the biggest of any athlete, as he finished 3.8% higher than anyone else in this field. As you can see, getting over 1,500 points is one of the most challenging tasks for any athlete to reach. You'll need to perform historically high, you'll need to win almost every single competition that you enter, and you'll also probably need to win a global title in order to pass this threshold. Also, breaking records will give you a higher score, as they tack on bonus points for extra records, including championship and world records. This chart right here paints a picture of many of the best athletes in the world at the moment, and their stranglehold on their events is next to impossible to match by any other athlete. Except, wait, we're forgetting one thing, and that's that if we expand this chart outwards and upwards, we finally find one more name, and that athlete is Mondo Duplantis in the men's pole vault. This point right here is obviously a statistical anomaly. It already looks as though he is galaxies away from any of these historically talented names, and, well, that's because he is. In terms of consistency, dominant wins, world record numbers, and historic margins of victory, there's really no one like Duplantis right now. In fact, in the history of world athletics, Duplantis is quite possibly the most dominant name to ever hit the track. And in 2025, Duplantis has reached yet another level of greatness that nobody in track and field has ever attained. Let me take you back to June 4th of 1987. In Madrid, Spain, in the men's 400 hurdles, Edwin Moses was looking to continue his winning streak that was now approaching a full decade. Through this 10-season-long winning streak, Moses had broken various world records, he had won Olympic titles, and he had become arguably the most dominant name in track and field. However, on this day, Danny Harris from the United States managed to take down Edwin Moses, finishing in 47.56 to Moses in second in 47.69. This was one of the longest and most impressive winning streaks in any sport in history, and at 9 years, 9 months, and 9 days, Moses cemented his name as an all-time great in track and field. But here's the interesting thing about this athlete, and that's that if we apply all of his records, if we apply his consistency, his winning streak, and his best moments, his estimate only comes out to around 1,540 points, meaning that at his peak, he is still almost a full 100 points behind Duplantis. Even up against a historically quick athlete like Edwin Moses, Mondo Duplantis just reaches a completely different echelon of greatness. And a big reason for this is the compact nature of Duplantis' jumping. When it comes to reaching a super high level in an overall ranking, an athlete has their previous 12 months analyzed to find a single number. And for Duplantis, he has already broken 4 world records in 2025 alone, and for Moses, it took him the better part of a decade to break 4 world records in the 400 hurdles. It's already crazy seeing just how much higher Duplantis is than any athlete in the world right now, But to see him applied against one of the greatest ever is yet another perspective to appreciate his jumping. Aside from winning this year's World Indoor Championships, and aside from winning this year's World Championships outdoors, Duplantis has also had a career that one would think would be next to impossible. Here are the current top 5 highest pole vault jumpers of all time. There is Casey Lightfoot, Emmanuel Corellis, Sergei Bubka, Ronald Lavillenie, and at number 1 is of course Mondo. Now, we've already discussed how Mondo has all of the top 14 highest jumps in history, and he is still the only athlete to ever jump over 6.2 meters. But when we take a step back, you can really appreciate just how unbelievable Mondo's career has been. When it comes to the 6-meter barrier, this used to be a threshold that meant that you were automatically set to win. Very few people have ever cleared 6 meters, but there's also a few people that have managed to jump this height rather consistently. Now for Casey Lightfoot, he has managed to jump over 6 meters 5 times. For Emmanuel Corellis, he's jumped over 6 meters a total of 13 times. For Ronald Lavillenie, who again is ranked number 2 all time, has jumped over 6 meters 18 times. And for Sergei Bubka, who broke 34 world records in his career, he has jumped over 6 meters 46 times. And with these 4 athletes reaching these numbers, why don't you take a guess at how many 6-meter plus jumps Mondo has had in his career? Go ahead and think it over. I'll give you all a few seconds here. Well, unbelievably, Mondo has jumped over 6 meters a total of 178 times, more than 3 times the number of Sergei Bubka. And here's the crazy part. Mondo Duplantis is still only 25 years old. There is a very real possibility that Mondo Duplantis is still just getting started. And aside from winning 2 Olympic titles and 3 World Championship titles before he's even turned 26, there's a chance that he could still reach unheard of numbers, not just in overall 6-meter jumps, but in overall height. There have been rumors that Mondo is set to not only jump higher next season, but he might switch poles over the following few seasons. And if he does this, it just might be possible for him to reach the unheard of 6.4 meter barrier. I personally think that Mondo has this ability, and while this is still 10 centimeters above his current PR of 6.30, there still seems to be nothing that this young athlete cannot do. Never before have we seen an athlete with this kind of dominance, with this kind of consistency, and let's also look into the fact that he has not lost a single pole vault competition since 2023. And for that competition, he clearly had an off day. So moving into next year and the years beyond, it's possible that we could see this man go undefeated for years and years. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.